Is leave granted? Leave is granted. Oh, Senator Rennick, go ahead.
Thank you, Acting Deputy Chair. And I rise to also speak to the Regional Rural Affairs Reference Committee on the Inland Rail, and it's a part of Queensland, in particular, like Senator Chisholm, that I'm very passionate about, not the least because I grew up there. And I'd like to add my support to what Senator Chisholm says about a Gladstone route. Ideally, that would go along parallel to Leichhardt Highway from Gundawindi up to Miles, up through Taroom, Theodore, Wandowan, and then eventually on to Gladstone. And that would open up a lot of possibilities because there's a lot of coal beds along that route. And there's also the Nathan Dam, which is a massive dam that would basically capture a lot of water that could be diverted southwards back into the Murray-Darling, as well as provide more water for the people on the Dawson River and a lot more water security. So if we could get a railway line up through there, we could also open up new coal deposits, and also, possibly, if you didn't want more coal mines, we could look at putting a nuclear power station in Barracuda State Forest, which just happens to be north of Chinchilla, and it's the biggest state forest in the Southern Hemisphere. And if you had a big water source there, supplied by the Nathan Dam, I think you could open up a lot of possibilities there. And it's really, really important that we create wealth through that region, because that region's been hard done by, because that's where a lot of maternity wards have been closed down by none other than the Queensland Labor government. They're trying to shut down the Theodore maternity ward, and I'm pleased to say the good efforts of Colin Boyce has been fighting very hard to keep that open. He's running for Flynn. He's replacing Ken O'Dowd on the LNP side. Miles has also had its maternity ward closed down. And just down the road, my hometown, 48 kilometres away, is Chinchilla. It's also had its maternity ward closed down. So it would be great if we would open up the railway lines and build some dams, more dams, and generate more royalties from coal mines. We could use that money to put back the maternity wards that State Labor have closed down. And while we're at it, we could probably buy back a few of the poker machines that were allowed into Queensland under Wayne Goss as well, because we really don't need any more of those things in Queensland. They've done nothing but destroy families. And I know that Labor always talk about a big game when it comes to looking after women. Well, I think it's about time they reversed their policies of the last 30 years and actually shut down the poker machines and reopen some maternity wards, which is what used to happen under the prior national government. And I know my good friend here, Senator Reynolds and Senator Cash, they're from the great state of WA, and they don't need poker machines. So I fail to see why the rest of the states in this country need poker machines. But I just want to touch on also the inland route going through to Toowoomba, which I was never in favour of. I was always in favour of the original route that was going to go down through Warwick and what they call Dogburr country, rather than running across the beautiful black soil plains of the Western Downs. But unfortunately that route got moved. Now, for those of you who understand the Constitution, you will know that it's the actual state government that owns the railway lines and not the federal government. So unfortunately we've been kind of kneecapped and copped a lot of the blame for the alignment of the route. But in typical Queensland Labor style, they're actually doing a reverse privatisation where they're trying to flog off the railway land that they own to the federal government to get money, and that's why they don't want to go down a Warwick route, which would require new land and buybacks that way. So what they're doing is a reverse privatisation, and we know the state premier's got a lot of experience in that because she privatised Queensland Rail, which is a great model. I love privatisation. Let's sell assets that generate income, and then and then spend it on one big inner city project, and then destroy all your future revenue, and you've got nothing to pay for future recurring expenses. Mr. Senator Patrick, if you want to know the history of Queensland government, it was the state Labor government that sold Golden Casket, which used to fund hospitals. They've sold Queensland Rail. I think Senator Watt was in the government when they sold Queensland Rail. I think he's even on record for admitting that was a big mistake. But don't worry, Senator Watt, I won't let you forget it anytime soon. And what else did they sell? Oh, they sold the wind and solar generators back in and the gas generators. They sold Port of Brisbane for 6 times earnings. Why would you sell the Port of Brisbane for 6 times earnings? 99-year lease. And they sold the forestry plantations for 5 times earnings. And not all that was leasehold. Actually, some of that was freehold. I mean, they literally gave away the assets, which was madness. But anyway, back to the inland rail. If we want to go forward in Queensland and get it back on track, we need to build. I mean, ultimately, if you went to a desert island, would you either A, go to a foreign bank and take out a loan, or B, would you build? And if we want to get back on track in this country, we have to start building. We have to do what Lachlan Macquarie did in 1810 when he got here. The first 17 years of the colony, we relied on foreign currency, had a drought in 1805, and all the foreign currency got repatriated, and they started bartering and trading in rum. And of course, as we all know what happens when you drink too much rum, it all ends up in a bit of a rum rebellion and all the sorts of nasty things. And Lachlan Macquarie was the first governor to see Australia as a country, not just a colony. He knows every country needs its own currency, because that way you can issue sovereign credit against sovereign wealth. And we have to look at an infrastructure bank, and I'm just about to run off to the Treasurer, hopefully he doesn't stand me up again, to talk about getting an infrastructure bank going in this country, because we can match sovereign credit against sovereign wealth. Now, a lot of people tell you you can't print money. Well, guess what? We're printing money now. We're printing $5 billion a week, but we're spending it. Now, that will cause inflation, because if you're printing and spending, you're going to increase demand. But guess what? If you print and build, you'll increase the supply of essential services. You'll provide more water. You can supply more power from power stations. You can provide better transport routes. Not only does that raise revenue, for governments, that then means you've got less taxes going forward, it increases the supply of essential services and it pushes down the cost of doing business. So it will make Australia much more competitive in trying to compete with other countries. And if we want to bring back manufacturing in this country, we need to start building. That is the only way forward. And this inland rail is a perfect example. Now, I'm agnostic. I'd basically go both ways, one to Gladstone, one to Brisbane, provided it went by. I prefer it to go via Warwick, just north of Warwick there, because Warwick's a great little town, and I think it got shafted when they moved it up to going around north part of Toowoomba, which just doesn't make sense because it's a big dogleg that adds 70 kilometres to the route. But that is a great way to open up and basically tap into all the wealth in this country. And I know, I'm speaking from the heart here, there's no better place to do that in the Western Downs and the Maranoa, which is God's own country. So I'll leave it there. And what do I say when I finish this stuff off? I'll seek leave to whatever. Yeah. Okay. Cheers.
I believe